He's also known as the Dragon of the West. Today I sculpt and talk about one of my all-time favorite cartoon characters, Uncle Iroh.
First, I must finish my roast duck.
So I created this head a little while ago, and I decided to fix it and finish it and create a video. For the people that don't know who Iroh is, he's a character from the amazing Nickelodeon show, Avatar the Last Airbender. Iroh was first introduced to the show in the very first episode, traveling with his exiled nephew, Prince Zuko. Both Iroh and Prince Zuko are firebenders, which means they can control and generate fire from fighting techniques they use. Here's a fun fact. Firebenders are the only benders that can spontaneously generate their element. In the show, despite being of the ruthless Fire Nation, Iroh was an easygoing, wise, and kind man, often dispensing his knowledge to people who needed it most by sitting down with them and having a cup of tea. It was moments like these that really showed how human this character was, even if it was just a cartoon. He preached living life to its fullest and was a firm believer that everyone had the power to create his or her own destiny. One reason Iroh was such a great character in my eyes was because of his wisdom and his compassion. He was a great firebending master who could breathe fire from his mouth, shoot lightning from his fingertips, and yet, at the end of the day, all he really wanted to do was open his own tea shop. One thing I really wanted to do with this character was animate a scene from the episode Tales of Ba Sing Se. In this scene, Iroh is walking up to this large tree on top of a hill. The sky is a bright orange from the sunset. Iroh kneels at the tree and makes a small memorial for his son who died in the war, and he sings this sad but beautiful song called Leaves from the Vine. And after you watch it, it just leaves you a quivering ball of emotions. This episode was dedicated to the late Japanese voice actor Mako, who voiced the character of Iroh. I will link a clip to the video if you guys would specifically like to see what it looks like. So with this sculpt, I eventually want to rig it and animate it. I have to sculpt him in a neutral pose. With his face, I made him slightly smiling and his eyebrows high, but that's okay. I can fix that with blend shapes, but that's later. The hair I sculpted on this character was only a temporary solution, so I could see how the character's face looked while I was sculpting him. You'll see in the final turn. For his clothes, I decided to go with his traditional Fire Nation getup. Now in the scene I want to animate, he is wearing different clothing, but it's okay. I have already sculpted these clothes, so no fret there. I just like the traditional clothes he wears, and I like them for the pose that I wanted. A quick history lesson about Avatar the Last Airbender. In this show, the world is divided into 4 nations that can control different elements: Air Nomads, Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation, and Water Tribes. Fun fact, these 4 nations each had their own type of fighting style that came from real martial arts. Firebending was based on the style Northern Shaolin, waterbending based on Tai Chi, earthbending a style called Hungar, and airbending based on, I'm gonna do my best, Ba Gua Zhang. I probably butchered that pronunciation. The Avatar, who is the main character, can control all 4 elements and is the incarnation of the spirit world. He brings peace to all 4 nations, but when all the nations needed him the most, he vanished for 100 years. During this 100-year period, the Fire Nation rises and starts their world conquest called the 100-Year War. The reason I tell you this is because this is where I will start with Iroh's backstory. Now, Iroh was different from other firebenders because he didn't generate his power from aggression or hatred. Instead, he relied on his power coming from the breath. This is shown in the awesome scene where you see Iroh just breathing and a ring of fire around him keeps rising and falling with every breath. This appears as a flashback in the episode Zuko Alone. This scene is where you see Iroh at the pinnacle, but also the end of his career as general. He is trying to siege the strongest city in the world called Ba Sing Se, which is a city of earthbenders. The attack went on for 600 days, and Iroh had succeeded in breaching its outer wall, a feat which no one had ever done before. But before he could reach the inner wall, his son was killed in battle, and Iroh had lost all spirit to fight. Eventually he abandoned the siege, and this was considered a terrible dishonor for him. It was after this when Iroh became the man that we see him as in the show. This is because he decided to not return to the Fire Nation, but instead travel the world as a spiritual journey. Originally, he was training to become the Fire Lord, but realized that wasn't an important aspect to him. He wanted to enjoy life by relaxing and appreciating the things around him. After this, he ended up helping the now banished Prince Zuko in finding the Avatar. Iroh would go on to train Zuko in firebending and eventually how to redirect lightning, as well as leading Zuko on a path that would bring him to light instead of darkness. Besides being the occasional comedic relief in the show, Iroh was the go-to guy when it came to wisdom. There were many episodes where he would sit down with someone, have tea, and listen to their problems and try to help them out. My favorite example comes from the episode Tales of Ba Sing Se. Can you tell what my favorite episode is yet? In this scene, he is hiding in an alleyway when a man approaches him wielding a knife, telling Iroh to give him his money. Instead of Iroh just blasting a fiery hole through the man's chest, Iroh asks the man what he is doing. The man, being confused by this question, yells, "I'm mugging you!" Iroh then proceeds to explain to the man that he has a poor stance and is less of a threat. He then proceeds to teach the mugger how to properly stand with the knife and eventually sits down with the man to a cup of tea and listens to the man's problems and eventually turns his life around. Scenes like these are why I really loved Avatar. The show altogether was amazing, but it was defining moments like this that really put the show over the edge for me. Let me know in the comments section who your favorite character was or what your favorite episode from the show was. As I said previously, I wanted to create this character to be animated, so I sculpted him in a T-pose. This is so you can easily rig the character later so that he's able to move. Another plus to sculpting a character in the T-pose is that you can put them in different poses. I plan on making videos of the pipeline process for creating this animation, so eventually I need to retopologize, create UV maps, create blend shapes, rig the character, animation, light my scene, and then do post-process things. I've had this idea for a really long time, and I actually have an Iroh that is already rigged. And I was originally going to do some animation for you guys, but I ended up not doing it because I didn't like how he looked. So after I don't really remember how many days this took, we have a nice steaming pile of Iroh. I'm much happier with how this Iroh turned out as opposed to my original. I would show you what it looked like, but my Maya license just expired, so I need to figure out how to get that back. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the sculpt. Let me know in the comments section. I am Banehorse, and remember to keep on creating.